April 15, 2024, News Report 1. On April 13, 2024, Iran launched a large-scale airstrike against Israel late at night. According to the Israeli military, nearly all of the suicide drones and cruise missiles launched by Iran were intercepted or shot down before reaching Israel. Iran launched 170 suicide drones, all of which were intercepted, and 30 cruise missiles, none of which entered Israeli airspace. The Israeli military shot down 25 missiles, while the UK and the US shot down the remaining 5. Additionally, Iran launched 120 ballistic missiles, with a few breaking through the defense line, resulting in 12 injuries, while the rest were intercepted. Iran stated that its attack on Israel had ended but warned of larger-scale actions if Israel retaliates. In this attack, the US, UK, and Jordan assisted Israel in intercepting Iran's targets. U.S. President Biden issued a statement condemning Iran's attack, reaffirming the U.S. commitment to Israel's security. Biden praised the extraordinary performance of the U.S. military in helping Israel shoot down almost all incoming drones and missiles. Biden also spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, praising the Israeli military's exceptional capabilities and congratulating Israel on its victory. The G7 leaders held a video conference on April 14, issuing a statement condemning Iran and expressing full support for Israel. They emphasized continued efforts to stabilize the situation and avoid further escalation. The Iranian attack on Israel caused almost no casualties, thanks to the assistance of the U.S. and its allies, aimed at preventing further deterioration of the situation. The Iranian attack on Israel has served as a warning to China. In the past, China's strategies for Taiwan operations typically included saturation missile attacks and landing operations. However, the U.S., UK, and Israel intercepted almost all of Iran's missiles and drones. This demonstrates the limited effectiveness of missile saturation operations and may affect the PLA's Taiwan operation strategy. Shanghai military scholar Zhao Chu stated that the interception of almost all Iranian missiles and the U.S. interception of Russia's hypersonic missiles proved the low effectiveness of missile saturation operations, negating the PLA's basic strategy for amphibious operations. News Report 2. German Chancellor Scholz arrived in Chongqing on the morning of April 14 to begin his visit to China. He then traveled to Shanghai on April 15 and is scheduled to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang on April 16. The background of this visit is the EU's anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric vehicles, solar panels, and turbines, indicating a possible tougher EU stance. However, Germany is highly dependent on China economically and has adopted a relatively relaxed attitude. The German Association of the Automotive Industry stated its opposition on April 12 to the EU imposing tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, as this could trigger trade conflicts and threaten German employment opportunities. This visit is accompanied by major companies, including Siemens, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. The dependence of German major companies on the Chinese market exceeds the imagination of other countries. Scholz announced before the trip that he hopes to secure better market access for German companies in China. According to Radio France Internationale, Scholz's visit to China has caused dissatisfaction within the EU. France believes that Germany, under the guise of pragmatism, is only pursuing immediate interests and is willing to harm the overall interests of Europe. To appease EU dissatisfaction, Scholz held multiple meetings with French Prime Minister Macron before visiting China. Both sides called for a rebalancing of EU-China trade relations. Scholz cancelled all tourist activities, including a boat tour of the Yangtze River, upon learning of Iran's airstrike on Israel while flying to China. He will participate in a G7 video conference on the afternoon of April 14. This is Scholz's second visit to China since becoming German Chancellor. Scholz has inherited former Chancellor Merkel's pro-China policy, with each visit to China seen as a diplomatic victory by China. Recent reports from Chinese state media indicate that Schultz's visit highlights the importance of the Chinese market. Cooperation between the two sides far outweighs competition, and their relationship is not that of adversaries. This narrative aligns with China's needs. China is leveraging differences between Germany and France to divide the EU's anti-subsidy investigation. Experts estimate that competition between China and Germany will only intensify, forcing Germany to take a tougher stance against China, especially on electric vehicles and other issues. News Report 3. The U.S. Secretary of State issued a statement announcing that Assistant Secretary of State Kanda arrived in China on April 14 for a 3-day visit. Becerra, the Senior Director for China and Taiwan Affairs at the U.S. National Security Council, will accompany Kanda on his visit to China. The statement emphasized that Kanda and Becerra will meet with Chinese officials as part of efforts to communicate and manage competition between the two countries. It is worth noting that U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen just concluded her visit to China last week. Kanda visited China in June last year for early preparations for the Paris Climate Change Conference. This visit by Kanda may be in preparation for Secretary of State Blinken's upcoming visit to China. According to U.S. officials, Blinken is expected to visit China in a few weeks, so Kanda's visit may be preparing for Blinken's visit. Additionally, Kanda's visit may also be related to stabilizing the situation in the Middle East. The U.S. government hopes to stabilize China through this visit to respond to the escalation in the Middle East situation. News Report 4. On April 12, the U.S. State Department issued travel advisories for Hong Kong and Macau, maintaining a Level 3 travel advisory for Macau, indicating that travelers need to reconsider whether to travel to China. The Level 2 travel advisory for Hong Kong reminds travelers to exercise increased caution. The U.S. travel advisories are divided into 4 levels, with Level 4 being the most severe, indicating, "Do not travel," as insurance may not cover it. The U.S. State Department maintains a Level 3 travel advisory for China because the Chinese government can arbitrarily enforce laws, which could lead to U.S. citizens facing exit bans and mistaken detention. The Level 2 travel advisory for Hong Kong is due to the vague wording of Article 23 of the Basic Law, which could result in imprisonment after being charged. Deputy Secretary of State Campbell stated on April 9 that the U.S. State Department is considering relaxing travel advisories for China but ultimately did not do so. Additionally, due to the widespread implementation of anti-spy laws by the Chinese government, the willingness of young Americans to study in China has sharply declined, with only 700 American students in China at the end of last year, further reduced to 211 in 2022. Some linguists believe that in the past, with busy China-US relations, American students going to study in China were expected to have good career development opportunities. However, as China-US relations deteriorate, these opportunities decrease, leading to fewer people studying in China. The Chinese government's increasingly strict law revisions and censorship of public speech have also affected the willingness of foreign students to study in China. These factors may ultimately affect foreign investment. Additionally, China held National Security Education Day on April 15, during which the Ministry of State Security released a special film titled "Innovation Leads National Security and Good Health," revealing the top 10 cases of espionage to alert society to the risk of leaks. These events reflect the current state of China-US relations, showing a trend of continued deterioration. News Report 5. According to Central News Agency, the Taiwan Navy plans to establish a Coastal Operations Command, which will include the Haiphong Brigade and the Missile Corvette Fleet Maritime Surveillance Command, responsible for defending Taiwan's 24 nautical miles of territorial waters, focusing on possible PLA landing operations. The command is scheduled to be established in early 2026, with a vice admiral serving as its commander. The Navy Command stated that the Coastal Operations Command will integrate maritime reconnaissance, surveillance, strike, and communication capabilities to enhance joint interception operations and strengthen defense depth. Initial plans include establishing Haifeng Brigade bases in Yunling, Tainan, Zhuiying, Pingdong, and Taitung. Additionally, Taiwan has purchased 100 sets of precision missile systems from the United States, including 400 land-based Harpoon anti-ship missiles, in addition to Taiwan's domestically produced Sung Feng 2 and 3 anti-ship missiles, totaling over 1,000 missiles. The Taiwan Navy hopes to enhance its ability to respond to PLA landing operations through these anti-ship missiles and artillery systems. These measures indicate that the Taiwan Navy is undergoing comprehensive reform, adjusting its defense strategy to cope with the current regional situation. News Report 6. Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong will step down on May 15, and Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat will be sworn in as Prime Minister that evening. Heng will be Singapore's fourth Prime Minister, having been nominated as the Prime Ministerial candidate by his colleagues in April 2022. Based on the handover timeline of the two former prime ministers, Lee is likely to submit his resignation to the president on May 13, and after the president accepts the resignation, a new prime minister will be appointed. Lee, the eldest son of Singapore's first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, became prime minister in August 2004. The 72-year-old Lee originally planned to retire before turning 70, but the COVID-19 pandemic delayed his retirement plans. In November last year, Lee announced that he would retire in 2024 and designated Heng as his successor. It is reported that Heng has gained popularity for his leadership in Singapore's fight against the pandemic. News Report 7. Chairman of the National People's Congress Zhao Leji visited North Korea and met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on April 13. CCTV aired footage of the two smiling warmly during their meeting, exchanging greetings with each other. Zhao appeared somewhat reserved at the meeting but gradually relaxed. The formal start of the talks was somewhat similar to Putin's meeting with Wang Yi, with an oval conference table, Kim Jong-un seated on one side, Zhao Leji and the Chinese delegation seated on the other side, facing each other, in a solemn atmosphere. Kim Jong-un and Zhao Leji announced that they would open a new chapter in China-DPRK relations, which received attention. Some jokingly refer to Chinese leader Xi Jinping, Russian leader Putin, and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as the three friends of winter. Of course, this is a reversal of its original meaning, as the three leaders of the countries are facing varying degrees of isolation in today's world. News Report 8. April 15 marks the 35th anniversary of the passing of former General Secretary of the CPC, Hu Yaobang. According to Radio Free Asia, Yan Huai, former Deputy Director of the Youth Cadres Bureau of the Organization Department of the CPC Central Committee, posted an article on his social media account on April 12 to commemorate Hu Yaobang. However, his post was blocked, and he was banned from posting for 2 weeks. The article titled, Hu Yaobang's Greatest Achievement, Liberating 100 Million Political Inferiors, discusses the era when class struggle and family background were emphasized, leading to political scrutiny of 3 generations of people, resulting in many being labeled as political inferiors. Hu Yaobang firmly opposed this practice, believing that the labels of landlords and rich peasants should not be passed down from generation to generation. In the 1980s, he abolished the labels of over 20 million, split elements, mainly composed of landlords and rich peasants, allowing more than 100 million people, including Yan Huai, to escape the status of inferiors. However, many overseas Chinese still cherish the memories of these former CPC leaders, but the author believes that these leaders were all involved in the CPC's wrongdoing and should be approached with caution. News Report 9. On April 12, a Chinese science popularization blogger, known as Dad Talks Science, stated that the concentration of cinnabar in the proprietary Chinese medicine Rendan produced by Tong Ren Tang in Beijing exceeded the standard by 97,000 times, reaching levels that are far beyond the EU standard. He pointed out that a German reader suffered poisoning after taking Rendan, and laboratory tests found that its content was 9,729 micrograms per kilogram, far exceeding the EU standard of 0.1 milligrams, equivalent to 100,000 times. Rendan is an over-the-counter medicine mainly used for resuscitation and contains cinnabar. Photos show that the product was manufactured in February 2022, but its cinnabar component contains mercury and is toxic, should not be taken in large quantities or for long periods, and should be avoided by pregnant women and those with impaired liver function. The instructions for Rendan from Tong Ren Tang did not specifically warn that cinnabar is toxic. According to the paper, Tong Ren Tang removed Rendan from its flagship stores on platforms such as Taobao, JD.com, and Pinduoduo on the afternoon of April 12, but it was relisted that evening. After Dad Talks Science posted his article, 2 subsequent articles were deleted. He urged everyone to use Rendan from Tong Ren Tang with caution and to avoid using it as much as possible. News Report 10. The Beijing Half Marathon took place on April 14. In the men's competition, 3 African runners helped a Chinese runner, resulting in the Chinese runner winning the race. Online videos show that the 3 African runners were originally leading the race but slowed down in the final stages, blocking their 2 other teammates to make them run slower, allowing the Chinese runner to cross the finish line first. This incident reveals that there may be cheating in China's marathon races, with organizers paying more attention to the spectacle of the event rather than the spirit of sportsmanship. Officials from the Beijing Sports Bureau told Agence France-Presse that they are investigating the matter. According to AFP, marathon races have become popular in China in recent years, but many races have cheating issues. For example, in the 2019 Suzhou Marathon, Chinese runners rode bicycles during the race, and in the 2018 Shenzhen Half Marathon, 258 runners continued the race after exceeding the prescribed time limit. These cheating phenomena may indicate a series of problems behind them, which we will elaborate on in the future. News Report 11. According to Central News Agency, a boating accident occurred in Qinhuangdao City, Hebei Province, involving an elderly tourist group, resulting in 31 people falling into the water, with 12 fatalities. The incident occurred when the Hebei elderly tourist group was sightseeing on a tourist boat in the Taolin Reservoir in Qinhuangdao City, encountering strong winds that caused the boat to capsize. Witnesses reported that no one on the tourist boat was wearing life jackets. Local residents stated that these tourist boats were originally like rafts and were only supposed to carry 10 people according to regulations. Upon preliminary investigation, the accident-involved boat was a homemade tourist boat that was not equipped with lifebuoys or other life-saving facilities. The local Public Security Bureau has arrested the owner and boatman for investigation. Additionally, China Central Television reported that on April 13, a collapse occurred at the construction site of the Tanjiang Bridge in Jiangmen City, Guangdong Province. This resulted in 4 workers falling into the river from a height, with 2 deaths, 1 injury, and 1 person missing. It is reported that the collapse occurred on the north bank of the Tanjiang Bridge, where a steel formwork collapsed, causing the workers to fall into a river approximately 10 meters deep. Local personnel have been dispatched for rescue efforts, but as of now, the missing worker has not been found. The construction site has been shut down after the accident.